credit will be assigned. Now let's go ahead and trace the algorithm. I'm just going to use regular text to represent the columns, which is not going to be pretty. We have line number here, and then we have the two variables. We have x, and we also have y. So the vertical bar symbol is being used to separate the columns. So the first line is the pre with no comments. That's always the case. In this case, do I have to give you specific values of x and y to start with?
No.
No, because
They're getting the value of 0 anyways.
yep, because they are going to be overwritten before their values get utilized. Okay, that's the important part. It's not just that they're going to be initialized, but they're initialized before their value is going to be used. Okay. So in this case, x can be a question mark, and y will start with a question mark as well. Okay. Then we go on to line 1. Line 1 is not too hard. The effect of line 1 is what? X ends up with a 0, and y is still the same. And you can use the same shorthand that I used in the class. If you are not making changes to a particular variable, you just leave it blank for that particular row. Again, we move on to line 2. So on line 2, we are not making any change. We are not making changes to x, so we can leave x alone, and y is going to be initialized to 0. And then on line 3, what do we do? Y is less than 5 is true. Y is 0. 0 is less than 5. Okay? So, got to be careful about that sort of thing. Because if someone tells me right here and says, y is less than 5 is false, and actually exit the loop, I cannot assign partial credit for tracing, the stuff that is inside the loop, because there's no demonstration that that person actually understands the nature of either conditions or, how to deal with a loop. Okay, so I'm basically I'll be looking for evidence that that person has demonstrated an understanding of a particular concept, and this makes grading a lot harder than all or none. All or none grading is easy. I just look at the whole thing. If there's nothing wrong, full points. If there's anything wrong, 0 points. That's the easy way to grade. Assigning partial credit takes a lot more time because I have to go through the checklist of all the items, spot everything, add up all the points, and then put the sum, back into the system. All right. So in this case, it is true. So the next line is going to be line 4 because we are going into the body of the loop. What does line 4 do? Line 4 is changing y. We are computing y plus x and then put the sum back into y. Now, if someone does not give me any entry here, I will take a point away, at least. Because y is actually getting updated. Even though it is the same value, you have to record the fact that there's an assignment statement and it is putting a value into y, even though it is the same value as before. Any questions? No questions? Okay. So we're going to move on to line 5. Line 5 is adding 1 to x. So x is updated to 1. Y is not updated at all. And then what do we do? This is also another crucial point.
False.
We go back to, not false, we have to go back to line 3 first. We go back to line 3, and then we say the condition is it true or is it false? It is still true, isn't it? Okay, so that's important. We go to line 4 again. This time, what is going to happen to y? Y will be updated to 1 because x has a value of 1, y has a value of 0, so the update is going to be a 1. We move on to line 5 again. And this time, x is going to be updated to 1. Y does not change. And this is the end of the loop. We go back to line 3. When we go back to line 3, we are asking the question again. Y is less than 5 is obviously still true because y has a value of 1 at this point. But you can see that the value of y does not increase linearly. Okay, we need two more iterations for it to exceed 5 or reach 5 at least. We move on to line 4. This time, what is going to happen to y?
Y is 3.
Y becomes 3 because x has a value of 2, y has a value of 1. 2 plus 1 is 3, so y is now updated to 3. We move on to line 5, and x gets updated to 3 because x is just x plus 1, so it is only 1 more than what it used to be. And then we move on back to line 3 again. We ask the same question. Y is less than 5 is true. Very good. Now, obviously, if you're using a piece of binder paper with the ruler, with a line that you draw for the columns, it's going to be a lot faster than me using the vertical bar to approximate the vertical line for columns. Okay. Now, one thing you guys have to make sure is your handwriting has to be legible. Okay, if I cannot read what you write, then I cannot give you the points. Okay, I will try my best to interpret handwriting, but when it is ambiguous, like it is really unclear what it is, then I can't really give a point to that particular part of your trace. The other part that is kind of dangerous is if you use a white piece of paper and you only use vertical lines to separate the columns. Sometimes when I would do the same thing too. When I keep doing this, at some point the rows will be skewed. Then it becomes impossible for me to see, is this the one row or is that a row? Okay, so in that case, it is also very hard or impossible for me to assign points or give anyone give that person the points because I cannot tell what is a row. So that's why if you start with binder paper that already has the horizontal lines and you just draw the vertical lines, that will be very helpful because things will be aligned properly. All right. So now we keep going. We are moving on to line 4. Line.
Pencil or pen? You carefully use pencil or pen?
No, pencil or a pen. It's up to you. Whichever one you feel more comfortable with is fine. I have not graded anything on paper for years. So this will be a refreshing experience for myself again. Okay, so now y is updated to 6 because x has a value of 3, y had a value of 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. And so we move on to line 5. Line 5 is going to add 1 to x. X ends up with a value of 4. And then we move on to line 3 again. This time, is the condition still true? It's going to be false. So y is less than 5 is finally false. And when it is false, we have to get out of the loop. Since there's nothing after line 6 to execute, then you have to say post after line 3 to basically indicate that that's the end of the trace. I probably will not take too many points away, when someone does not have a post. But the purpose of the post is to clearly indicate this is the end of this trace. I did not run out of time. This is the end of it. Okay? Because if someone just kind of leave it, dangling and not use a post, then it is hard for me to say, okay, does this person think that the algorithm is done, or is this person running out of time and did not have a chance to finish the rest? Okay? So with a post, I can differentiate between those two cases. Are there any questions about the answer to this question? Yes, sir.
Is there ever going to be a case where we have to address line 6 or any end while line?
I do not trace line 6. Line 6 is ambiguous. When you trace line 6, do you trace line 6 when you are exiting the loop, or do you trace line 6 when you're done with the last line in the body of the loop? So that's why it is ambiguous, and that's why we don't trace it. Okay? Okay, any other questions? I thought I saw another hand. No? Oh, okay. No questions? Yep.
Are you going to have us draw the trail, draw the graph
No, the graphs will not be required. I will not ask anyone to draw the picture representing an algorithm. If you think it will help you, you can draw, in addition to what I'm looking for, you can always add as much stuff as you think will help yourself and turn it in as well. It just won't be graded and will not receive any points. Okay? Any other questions? No other questions. Very good. So that's one question. We'll go for another question. We'll basically try to practice as many questions as we can so that you guys have a chance to see what type of question will be asked in the test. So this is question 1, and here is question 2. So I'll make question 2 one of those, questions that you guys do not like, the pre and the post conditions. Okay? Okay. Derive the post condition of the last line of the algorithm. Be sure to follow all the conventions. So conventions are very important because in this class, having the correct result is useful, but I want to know, how you get to the result. Okay, so the derivation, all the steps of the derivation is also going to be important. Okay, so when we are, let's just deal with the question first, and then I'll come back and ask you guys, what do you think are the important parts of the derivations? So we'll start with, something easy. We'll start with x gets a value of 5, y gets x plus 1. Line 3, x gets a new value. It gets 3, and line 4 is y gets y plus x. Okay, we'll call that a very simple question. Okay. So with this particular example, what do you think are the important conventions to follow? Okay, so in this case, you need the pre and post conditions of each line in the algorithm. Which basically means, if I'm pretty sure, many people in this class can just scan the algorithm, eyeball, and say, oh, I already know what x is going to be. X is going to end up with a value of 3. That's easy. And y is going to end up with a value of 9. Okay, you can probably just eyeball it, and know the result. Just telling me that is the post result, in this case, will not get any points. Okay, because I know it is easy to see the result. I want you guys to tell me why that is the case. Okay. So that means, in order to receive the points, you have to explain on each line, you have to explain which rule you're using and why you're using that rule. So for each line, explain, in italics, why you pick a particular rule to use and how the rule is applied. So I want, step by step, just, little steps to illustrate all of these things that I go through in the class. Now, obviously, pre-1 has to be given. Okay, pre-1 is true. Okay, this is given. Okay, so my job now, pretending that I'm a student taking this class and answering this test, my job is now start with pre-1, so I can derive post 1, and then from post 1, how does post 1 relate to pre 2?